Hello everyone, I'm Brian. Today I'm reacting to Extreme Choices and Behaviors. Acharya with IIT Kharagpur 2022. I'm sorry, I tried. Ka- Kharagpur. Anyways, it's the thumbnail that caught me. Extreme Emotions. Kind of wondering how how this is interpreted by Acharya and also what he has to say about it. I mean, I get it. There are people out there with some pretty extreme emotions, and I'm kind of curious what he has to say about it. Guys, I mean, for me, if I see someone with extreme emotions, obviously you want to try to calm them down, but at the same time, it's quite difficult. So I'm not exactly sure how he's going to take this. So let's go ahead and get started.
Acharya ji, I have observed a trend that in the recent past, the number of people who are resorting to extremities for any reason, be that be
Oh.
political, be that be religious, be that be just social extremities, have just increased in number. And this specifically, if we put this in a worldview context, this is a problem that is gonna emerge and haunt specifically our culture in the coming future. And I feel that it is that we just see a trend where extremity as a behavior is penetrating things that were not extreme to begin with, and this has been more of a reactive kind of mechanism. Say I'm talking about the people who associate themselves with Sanatan Dharma, or people who associate themselves with specific ideologies that are non-extreme, and there have been
Hmm.
sects and there have been people who have resorted to extremities more of as a reaction because they see no other way out, or whatever may be the reason that they cite. But then what uh, like do we as a society want to see ourselves develop in that fashion, or how exactly should we have a vision of the future? Like, where exactly are we heading, and should we be heading that way?
I see it's really, really strange. I would have never thought Western and Eastern cultures having very similar issues. Now, no, Eastern, you do not blame the West for this because you are your own culture. But what I will say though, this makes me think that this is just something human behavior. It's really strange, and I'm discovering that more and more as I look at other cultures. It's just that we I would say in the Eastern culture would just see the West doing something, but mind you, you have to take responsibility for your own actions. So, for example, if we see something in the Western people see something in the East and we take that up, that is our response. That's the Western's responsibility for doing that. You can't blame the East for saying, "Oh, they do it, so we're gonna do it." It's like, no, no, no. No one has to do anything. If you do it because you see it from the West, that is your own fault. But it's just really interesting. So this is the reason why I don't think it's necessarily an East or West thing. I think it's more for just a human behavior, which is really strange. Which I'm mostly glad of, but at the same time, that means regardless of the society, west, east, middle, north, south, Mars or whatever, it's going to be the same. The the issues will just be end up being the same, even if we have send humans to Mars and they colonize Mars. You're gonna see the exact same thing that's happened to the west and the east over in Mars. So this is an issue that we as human beings have to tackle, and I just don't understand why we always have to take it so to the extreme. I mean, I'm sorry. Like I look at the people in Western Europe, and it's honestly, in my opinion, just very pathetic. The others people are the stop oil people, where they get in front of cars, or they throw crap at painting and stuff. I get that it's not necessarily violent, but at the same time, you stopping cars are causing you're going against your views because now they're using more oil because of that. And also you're turning the people against you. I mean, and then, how do you get people on your side? It's really hard. And I get if they want to do this, they have to do it smart. The best thing that they can do is to go to school, learn how to start developing another type of energy, something that's more eco-friendly, that's more affordable. Because if it's going to be super expensive, guess who's not going to be able to afford it? The poor people, which is majority of the people. So I'm sorry, but I'm going to say this too. Real quick thing. Anytime we do rules, laws, or convert to better stuff, it usually the people who suffer the most are those in the lower brackets, not just the poor people, but even the middle lower class, because all these friendly stuff is more expensive. Because obviously the materials probably cost more, the processes cost more because it's friendlier. So it ends up being the majority, the probably bottom 20 to 30% people suffer, you know. And mind you, I'm not saying those who are homeless. I'm just saying people who are actually making money and barely making it by and has a house. Those 20 to 30%, not including the people who already don't have a job and homeless. They have already suffered. They're out of the equation, just for this matter. Man, I talked a lot of.
See, every extreme denotes a thirst. Be it the extreme food consumption of somebody recuperating from a fresh breakup, the extreme possessiveness of protective husband, the extreme competitiveness of a job seeker, the extreme anger of a jilted lover, all these extremes denote a thirst. Do you see this? Extreme anger, extreme anything. If today you are seeing so many extremes in all ways in the society, they are indicative of a central common problem. And there is not just religious extremism. Even global temperatures are rushing towards an extreme, are they not? Even sea levels are rushing towards an extreme, are they not? And I'm inviting you to see that all these are interrelated. The global forest cover currently stands at an extreme. What kind of an extreme?
Minimum.
It is lower than it ever was in history, right?
Makes sense though.
Global flesh consumption, both in absolute and per capita terms, today stands at an extreme. No?
Makes sense.
Humanity was never killing so many animals per minute ever in history. The average person was never consuming so much flesh ever in history. The quantum of fissile material, weaponized fissile material with the world today stands at an extreme, does it not? Computer processing speed today stands at an extreme.
Okay, I mean, you could literally say that about just everything. I mean, everything stands at an extreme. I think. I don't know if there's anything you can childbirth at its extreme. We never had so many children being born. Well, maybe besides the baby boomer, I don't know. Maybe even today we have more childbirth than even during the baby boomer era globally. I'm trying to understand what he's trying to get. I mean, yeah, a lot of things are an extreme, but I'm assuming he's trying to ask about like I mean, a great one would be, I guess, it's Sanata Dharma, sorry, which is not generally an extreme group, but a peaceful group, yet taking extreme measures, I believe, if I understood him correctly. And the translation or the closed captioning was right. It said Santa, and then I think it says DH there, so I'm assuming it's Sanata Dharma. Hmm.
Does it not? Would you want to see how all these extremes are linked? We said all extremes come from a certain thirst, rather a central thirst. Religious extremism is gross, it's very visible, it's right there on the roads. It carries banners and flags. So it's obvious because there are slogans and often there are riots as well. So it's obvious. But think of this age of extremes.
Real quick, I want to make a comment. Throughout the entirety of human history, there's always been extremes, and you can even say the eating of flesh has always been in extremes every single year. As human population grows, as more people are needed to eat more food, even eating food in general has been more extreme. Just again, every year it's been progressively getting more and more and more. Uh, while we can say compared to this year and say 10 years ago there's more consumption this year, but yes, but 10 years ago that had more extremes than the 10 years prior to that one, and then 10 years prior to that one, and so on and so forth. It's always going to be an extreme, even when we go back to the caveman eras where 100 years from caveman eras till 100 years later, they consume more than when they were in the caveman era, the initial caveman era, so trying to understand his point here.
As one composite unit. All of this is arising from the kind of despondency in the human mind that is unequaled in history. Have you ever had such a large proportion of humanity in a state of neurosis? Such a huge mass of people suffering from all kinds of mental disorders. Was it ever the case? The average anxiety levels in the population today are at an unthinkable extreme.
I will say this about that, though. I will say this real quick. And now that he says that, I was thinking about this myself. While I want to agree with him 100% because I've said this too, but now that I think about it, I'm wondering if, back there, again, we go to the caveman eras. I'm wondering if they were probably more stressed out than we were, considering that they're fighting for survival from animals, the weather, and eating food and getting cut because they didn't have medicine. They didn't have medicine for getting cut. They could get infected and die. They didn't have medicine for food because if they eat something bad, they could die. They didn't have medicine because if they get cold from the constant rain and all that, they could die. And didn't have medicine if they get killed by an animal or get scratched by an animal. This is the saddest thing is that they have more right to be anxious and fearful in the past than we do today. Yet somehow today we are unbelievably anxious and fearful and whatever else when the world is so much safer, relatively speaking, from the past. I mean, you even look back in say the medieval ages where things could go bad. You tick off the wrong, you know, whatever high lords or whatever or higher ups or whatever, you could end up getting executed just because you looked at them wrong. Not saying it happens frequently. I wouldn't doubt it. It has happened, And then you go back even in the past where, where probably a group of five cave people were probably ambushed by, saber-tooth tigers or whatever, and the entire group was just wiped out right then and there. But and I want him to. I 100% want to agree with this, and I want to say this too: is that for some odd reason today our people is just so anxious, and it makes no sense to me. Oh, and they also those tribes would get ambushed by other tribes too. So again, there's tribe versus nature, tribe versus animals, tribe versus getting cut and eating bad food. Because you eat berries, but there could be you obviously didn't know what was edible or not. They just had to try it and hope they didn't die. If they didn't die, that means they could eat that.
And the world today is more prosperous than it ever was. The per capita average global income is an extreme today. Mankind has more knowledge than it ever had. Do you see what is happening? What is common among all those extremes is that they are all external. They are all external. They are all external extremes. Be it the processing speed part, be it the consumption part, be it the knowledge part. They are all outside of the human being. In the external world, man is rushing to deeper and deeper extremes. Probably the reason is that the void in our center today is deeper than ever. And this internal hollow, its extreme hollowness is causing us to rush to extreme measures in the external world. Where is this internal hollowness coming from? This internal hollowness is coming from a combination of mainly two things. One, a state of technology that can produce more and more for consumption, and a state of philosophy that is liberal enough to deny liberation. So there is the factory yielding more and more goods, and there is the philosophy telling you that consumption of these goods is the purpose of your life. But the purpose of your life is something else, and that purpose sits as a deep, unaddressed, extreme hollow in our chests. Technology, economy, and philosophy have combined to bring humanity to probably its lowest state in terms of consciousness in its history. And that's why you see all kinds of extremism everywhere in the world. Because of the misdoings of organized religion, the last 200 to 300 years have been of the decline of religion ever since the Enlightenment period in Europe. There was a lot in religion that obviously deserved to be rejected. But the core of religion, which is the spiritual urge to be liberated, had to be preserved as the most precious diamond mankind can ever have. Instead, we chose to throw the baby out with the bath water.
Bathwater.
So, liberation has been junked along with religion, and consumption has been foisted upon us, mandatory consumption.
I'll disagree with him a little bit here, but I think I understand what he's trying to say. I don't think it's been mandated on us, but we are fed to believe that. So I think that's what he might be trying to say, is that the fact that we look at the world today and everything's about consumption, 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 and it very much looks like that. So it's not necessarily a disagreement, but I think perhaps the interpretation is a little bit wrong. We are not necessarily forced upon it, but everything we see says to consume everything. So while we are not technically forced, it is what we see on an everyday basis, and it's up to us to make that decision whether we do, whether we participate in the consumption or not. So I wouldn't say necessarily force, but we are fed that. We are fed to consume on an everyday basis. I mean, you look at the phones, you look at the cars, maybe the cars. You look at things, they're the reason why we're meant to consume these things is because, the business has to make money. If your phone only lasts for 2 years, you have to buy a brand new one. Guess what? Every 2 years, that person can make a profit off you. That business can make a profit off you. If yeah, it becomes junk after 2 years, or kind of Apple was kind of accused of that, where they slow down the processor after a certain time, and they say it's like, no, that we're trying to preserve the processor because it's so old. And I think in EU, I believe it's in EU that they got sued for that. I think it's been a long while.
That's the reason why you see people running to all these extremes, because it's scary. We need meaning, we need purpose to life. And when we do not find meaning and purpose in life, we do stupid things like religious extremism, like extremism in merrymaking. People want to go to the Mars to get some pleasure. An extreme step.
Acharya, just another thing, but which is slightly off from this, but then I feel that that has been something on my mind ever since you talked about liberalism in the current society, and all of us, these external extremities relating with the hollow that is in our chest, is a common observation about uh, about people or intellectuals claiming how a liberal society should be, but in fact not doing it. And I mean that's a statement, but then I want to know your opinion about say how recently we have seen a surge in the people who say that they are homosexuals, and who say that they associate, see, saying that sexuality is fluid is one thing, but this has extended to the point where people say gender is fluid. People say, I mean, it's not far away when they would even claim that age is fluid. There have been cases where there have been some specific, say, perversions claiming some sort of. There has been this specific case in UK where a specific group of people have claimed some sort of security under the LGBTQ plus movement. And I just want to know your opinion about this particular thing. Why the rise on this? Because this is something which is relatively internal, I feel. But then again, we as a society are moving to its extreme.
Is it not obvious
real quick. So that is interesting. I don't know if he's so far he looks like he points towards the UK. I don't know if it's going on in his particular part, whether that's India or just somewhere in the east. Um, so like for me, gay, lesbian, I don't care. You know, if it makes you happy and the person makes you happy, be happy. As long as it's not forced. I'm 100% for it. Able to consent. Um, but then he talks about there have been some age is fluid. Now, this brings back the UK. I thought he was going to bring this up. There's a guy in the UK who claims to be 7 years old, and there's this family that I think adopted this, I think is a 40-year-old man, allows the 40-year-old man to play with their child because their child is 7 and he claims to be 7. And I guess the next thing I would like to talk about would be about gender fluidity. So when we look at the bathrooms, when we look at, he, she, and all this, while gender is part of the language for sure, it, in my opinion, language is defined in some sense by science as well. So what I mean by that is that, so you have many definitions of the same thing. Chair, stool, bar back, etc. I mean, things of different things. Car, vehicle, truck, van. These are many different names for, generally speaking, the same thing. Some are a little bit more specific, of course. Car is used as a kind of like a general term for vehicle a lot of times, or transportation. These are different definitions that we have of the same thing, but they all mean the same thing, generally speaking. So to me, gender was just another way, just a translation from science. So we don't say sex, we say gender. And for man and woman, it's always been the sex of it. It's just, again, an English translation or, the language translation of that. It's never been about what's necessarily between your legs per se, but it's always been roughly the scientific definition of it. Generally speaking, XX and XY chromosomes, what's between your legs, um, mostly those things. It's not about how you feel because that can change at any given moment. So, my reasoning for why people are moving on to these things is because they have nothing to worry about. There's no issues in their life, so they have to find issues. They have to feel wanted. They have to feel needed. There's an emptiness in them that they want fulfilled. And the only way they're going to get that is by thinking they are this gender, that gender, because clearly the gender that they're assigned at birth is not good enough, so they want to feel special, so they say that I'm this gender. Just gender throughout most of history, during the history of gender, it's just been about your chromosomes, really, because there are people out there who are, I forget what they're called, but they have like XYY or XXY chromosomes, which is, I believe, to be a third gender. I can't remember. It's been a while, but those are very, very much the exceptions, and only the exceptions. They're not the rule. But again, to me, gender was just a specific translation from science to English, or science to the language, because you have male and female, which are scientific terms, but you also have man and woman, which are English terms. Let me just use English terms, because you don't want to say, "Oh yeah, I've seen the male." You want to say, "Oh, I've seen the man." Yeah, and even boy can be used for adult male, generally speaking. But teenager doesn't refer to male or female. It's just an age range, where boy is also typically an age range of, under 10 or 10 and under 11 under something like that. And teen, it's in the teenage years, like 11, 11, 12, 13. maybe I don't know if 11 and 12 are part of that. I'm not sure what the teen part current says, but you get what I'm saying. But it's never associated with sex. There's no, boy teen or man teen or anything like that. But there's no sex association with the teen years. The teen years is just the years itself. Then you say, oh yeah, he's a teenager. He teenager. So it's a boy or a girl, but it's never about how they feel. The gender's never been about feeling. So anyways, this is my opinion on that stuff.
Devang. I mean, you want something in life when you don't get it at several places.
You seek it
You
out.
try it at this place as well. And if you start seeing some little success
Mm.
in playing with your sexuality,
Mm.
then you just
Go with it.
squat there and you start insisting that this maybe is the thing that will take me all the distance.
Yeah, there's the emptiness inside, like I said a little bit earlier, that just because they have no struggle in life, that they have to find. I think they either need to be the victim, they need to find struggle, or they're so empty that they need to find something that makes them special. Because they don't see themselves as special. They see that, being this thing is so much negative in the world that they don't want to be that, kind of thing.
The little kid wants the real thing. It cannot get that.
Hmm.
So it starts sucking its thumb or its big toe. It starts playing with its own body. But its own body is not what it wants. That
Hmm.
which it really
Interesting.
wants, we have assigned to dustbin in the name of progress, in the name of liberalism, in the name of science, atheism, in the name of several modern and postmodern ideologies. The real thing is there, and if you will be restrained from having the real thing, you will do a lot of strange things. That's what we find humanity doing today. Strange and self-destructive. We are closer to self-imploding today than we ever were. Think of this extreme. Think are closer to self imploding today than we ever were. Think of this extreme. Think of the doomsday clock.
Oops, sorry. I didn't realize I muted myself. Look, yeah, and I was agreeing with him about what he's saying here, how we're just going to different things just for seeking out stuff.
Think of all the Kyoto protocols and the Copenhagen thing and the Rio de Janeiro and the Paris thing. Think of what kind of extreme failures they have been. Think of why mankind is so suicidal today. And you will know what we are missing. We are missing the real thing we are born for.
In the long run, like right now, in the present state, the society is in a manner moving towards its self-destruction. So, is there any way? Is there any particular way? Like we can always have these sporadic set of individuals who have been a little more enlightened than the masses, who have served as guiding poles for the masses in general. Uh, but then, do we see a future for our society where we might not directly be led to that doomsday?
Person said I might be not led to Dr. Doomsday. Let me see a future. Well, yeah, follow a lot of the Eastern philosophies and Hinduism for sure, especially. I mean, don't get me wrong, religion to some degree. And the problem with atheism is the sheer fact that it's not a necessarily a book or a doctrine. So atheism, in a lot of sense, is just like a free for all. There's no book that you have to follow. It's all individual. Um, but yeah, I mean, what said Guru Acharya Prashad Swami Sarva Priyananda, Swami Taramananda, Swami Anubhavananda, Lakhani, all these gurus, swamis, and teachers that I watch are all trying their best to do it. I just don't know whether the ignorance is growing. I think the ignorance is growing at a significantly rapid rate compared to the teachers that can teach. But hopefully, there's enough of us left that that should the end come that we can repopulate, I suppose, and just repeat the cycle again.
No, you see, you have to do things if you want to avert what clearly awaits us. You need to have 1,000 such discussions happening every minute at a million places across the globe. We have started a little initiative called Ghar Ghar Upanishad. It's just too small. It needs to be amplified a million times. And this is what needs to happen. We clearly know what can save us. We know that. It's just that we need to work on it. We need to feed resources into it. We need to build an opinion, an understanding around it. We need to have more and more people enroll by way of understanding. There needs to be a lot of information dissemination, a lot of publicity, a lot of propaganda.
I guess this is it.
It's weird for Acharya to say propaganda, but I mean, I was agreeing with Kharagpur. Um, what's the right decision? I mean, what Acharya here, Swami, again, all the people that I've said, what they're doing is the best they can. He's right about, a thousand talks every minute, a million amplified by a million. I mean, having this YouTube channel is a great way to do it. I mean, I'm sure he's reaching out to a lot of people, and hopefully the people that only watches Sadhguru, who watches my channel, will give Acharya Prashant a chance, and people who only watch Acharya, who watches my channel, will give Sadhguru a chance, or Swami Sarvapyananda, or Swami Tanamananda, or Lakhani, or all the other gurus and swamis that I watch, because there are many ways to enlightenment. There's many different paths, and each of them have their unique way of teaching, and each way of how do I say? We all each have our way of learning. I've learned a lot from all of them, so I'm glad I watch all of them for sure. Everyone's a little bit different, and I learn a little bit different from everyone. I understand the concept and ideas behind it, and I'm practicing it in daily life. I just don't know, I guess, if I'm there or not, or if I'm heading the right path. I am heading a path, but whether it's right or not, I don't know. I'm not going to be too worried about it. I'll continue on this path. If it's the right one, it's the right one. If it's the wrong one, it's the wrong one. So that's my reaction to extreme choices and behaviors. Like I said, it seems like the West, and at least in India. I don't know if it's happening in China or any other Eastern countries, but it seems like India and the West have a lot of similarities, which is fascinating, but at the same time interesting because this makes me think that it's not a West or East thing, but more of a human thing. And I'm just wondering if I wouldn't doubt culture has something to do with it, but I just have a feeling culture kind of amplifies the human behavior. Whether it's something that is or is not permitted or acceptable in culture, but nonetheless is a deep down human behavior that we all have, and it's just a matter of whether we allow it to happen or not in our culture. That might be the only thing that makes it different between cultures. Other than that, I have a feeling it's just a human behavior. Not 100% sure, but it seems like it. So, anyways, if you like my content, please consider subscribing, thumbs up, the stand down below. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next vid.